welcome back to my channel. Wendy Renee here. So excited to have you back. Today we're talking to Celeste. Celeste has been on our show before. She is a recurring guest. So now we're going to catch up with Celeste and see what's going on. Before we begin, as always, I want to thank you so much for liking, sharing, and subscribing. It just shows that there are more and more people becoming aware of the fact that there is hope and positivity and joy on the other side of high control religion and narcissistic abuse. Be sure to check us out on TikTok and Instagram, where we have conversations in the comment sections. Celeste, welcome back. We're excited to have you back on the channel. We're really excited to hear about your update. People are still commenting on your video and people are reaching out to you. So why don't you catch us up and tell us what you've been doing?
Yeah, I'm so happy to be back on. So it's been a very crazy 6 months since the last time I was on here. A lot has changed. And so I thought that it might be helpful to, I've had a lot of people reach out to me from that last video.
We left off with you woke up and you were still kind of in the process of working through your marriage. Your husband at the time was still preemie. So all these months later, what's going on there?
So fast forward to right now, and we are actually in the process of getting divorced, but it's not for any of the reasons that people assume we were going to get divorced. Because there was actually a lot of people rooting for the downfall of our marriage, and which made things difficult. But we ended up going our separate ways because it was what was best for both of us as individuals. Not because we hate each other, not because he chose a religion over his wife. And I definitely did not cheat on him, because that is the number one assumption.
When you say people, do you mean people in the organization were rooting for your downfall?
Honestly, some people outside of the organization too. I did receive a lot of negative comments from XJWs who I think were still just falling in line with that black and white thinking that we're taught as witnesses. But the majority of people rooting for the downfall were within the organization, specifically both of our families. My family would still talk to him and try to get him to say negative things about me, and which was really, really stressful for him because he didn't have anything negative to say about me. And his family were just constantly in his ear about how I was a spiritual endangerment to him. And so we were trying really hard, one, because we're both a little stubborn and like just to spite people and show like, yeah, your marriage can work, because it definitely could have worked. Ultimately, it was my decision to end the marriage, because I realized one thing I wasn't prepared for when leaving the organization was how much I would change as a person. I didn't think I would evolve so much. And one day I just realized, like, this isn't my life. I don't know whose life I'm living. Around the beginning of September, I had been out for a full month. At this point, I'd been physically out, mentally out for about 4 or 5 months. I realized how much growth I was growing. And it kind of made me upset because I also realized that my husband was staying in the exact same spot, which wasn't a bad spot, but we weren't on the same level. We weren't speaking the same language anymore. And we were still friends. We were still best friends, but it didn't really feel like a marriage anymore. When I started thinking about separating, and I didn't want to, like, I wanted it to be his choice. Part of me was like, oh, I want him to choose Jehovah over me so I don't have to be the bad guy here. But we ended up talking about it. And turns out he was feeling the same way, that we were just on, we were missing something. Because at first, when I very first left the organization, it felt like we were dating again, because we were getting to know each other all over again. We were spending a lot more time together, just because, like, trying to figure this out, we both needed the comfort from each other while going through that situation of me leaving and him staying. But after a while, it no longer felt like we were dating. And so we talked about it, and he acknowledged, he was like, yeah, you're a totally different person. Like, I feel like I don't know who you are. And that's not in a bad way, but you're not the same person I married. And I 100% agreed with him. And where my issue was, is he was the exact same person I married. and which wasn't a bad thing because he's a great guy, but we both wanted different things in life. One of the biggest things is since I left the organization, I now want kids. I never in a million years would have wanted kids before. I always said like, oh, maybe 10,000 years into the new system, I'll want kids. It wasn't even an option for me. We did not want kids. But since leaving the organization, my thoughts on that changed. And now, one, I'm no longer afraid of turning into either of my parents. Two, I know that this life is all that I have now. So yeah, I would like the opportunity to raise kids. And he didn't feel the same. He's still stuck with what we decided when we got married. He didn't want kids, which is fine, but that's a really big thing to try to compromise on.
Very, very big thing. And you mentioned that your family or people in the organization or even XJWs, the black and white thinking is somebody's at fault. Somebody's to blame. Because in the organization, it can never be, listen, we're really good people. We're just not really good together. It could never be that simple. It always has to be, well, who cheated or who did what, and then, or who's having the mental breakdown. Like there's always some kind of a reason. It could never just be, listen, we really do love and respect each other. We're just different people now.
Exactly. And I feel like, especially within the organization, a lot of us get married super young. Like I got married less than a month after I turned 20. I thought I was so mature. Like if I could go back and like just slap some sense into my 20-year-old self right now, and I'm saying that as a 25-year-old, like now I know what I don't know everything.
Right.
Right. Whereas at 20, I was so focused on proving how mature I was and proving how ready to be a capable wife I was. I thought that I had done everything I needed to do in my life because I'd lived on my own. I had traveled abroad on my own. I had done a bunch spiritually by the time I was getting married. And so like, I thought, yeah, I'm happy enough. This is good enough. I'll do everything else with my husband. And it was nice doing everything else with my husband. We got along great, but now I don't know if it's because my frontal lobe is just now fully developed. I think that probably has something to do with it. But I realized that I put myself in a situation by getting married so young that I was not mature enough to handle. And even him being 5 years older than me, he wasn't mature enough really to handle it either. We both kind of like had to grow up together and like raise each other a little bit, which it was fun. And I do not regret any of the time we spent together, but it's not fair. It's not fair that we were made to get to know each other after legally committing ourselves to each other. Dating as Jehovah's Witnesses, it's not real dating. It's courting. You always have a chaperone. You don't date. If you date for more than a year, you get looked at funny. It's not real dating. You don't really get a chance to know each other. And you don't get a chance to know each other past the honeymoon period.
It's interesting that you mentioned by 20, you felt you were kind of already matured. And I think that has so much to do with being a woman in that organization. We don't go to college. We don't really have aspirations. We're not allowed to do anything. And so it's like being married is the next step to maturity where you're looked at as a grown-up. So might as well get married. It'll give me something to do.
Yeah. And that's honestly like, I was like, I'm ready to be a wife. I'm ready to support my husband, which in the area I'm from, it was looked down upon to get married so young. Where I grew up. Now, where he grew up, only 3 hours away from my congregation, he was 25, or he was 24 when we started dating. And people were like, you sure you like girls? Like, you sure you want to get married? Because he wasn't married by 23. So we had a lot of opinions from the congregation when we were young and getting married and stuff like that. But one thing we realized is we would have never married each other if we weren't Jehovah's Witnesses. We were both the best option available to us at the time, which really sucks to say, because when you get married, no matter how young you get married, like you think you're going to spend forever with this person. And then only to realize later that you guys aren't actually good for each other. And the really, really hard part for me is I'm the one who decided to end the marriage. Cody really wanted to work things out. He wanted to figure things out. He's still very much, or I don't know if he still is right now, but he was at the time still very much in love with me. And so it was really hard to have to break his heart. And even though I know that I'm doing this for him as much as I'm doing it for myself, even just the stress of having to deal with my family for him, because they can't say all their negative comments to me. So they're going to keep telling him he doesn't need that burden. And also the fact that he deserves someone who's going to sit by his side at conventions and assemblies. If he wants to continue being a witness, he deserves someone who's going to sit by his side at the Kingdom Hall. He deserves someone who's going to be so proud of him after his public talk. He doesn't, and I, as an activist, don't need to be learning all this stuff that I can't share with my spouse. Because since I have left the organization, I have learned a lot about the happenings inside. I've read the elders book. I know a lot more than I ever thought I could know about the organization. And it really sucks not being able to share that with my spouse. And on top of that, it really sucks doing things that I want to do a part of my new life without my spouse. For example, I had my first birthday celebration back in September, and it was the best weekend of my life, and he wasn't there. And so I think that's when I really started thinking, like, how many more best days of my life is he not going to be there for? That's not fair to either of us. If we're supposed to be one flesh, why can't we be with each other when great things happen? And so that was where I started thinking about separating. And the timeline ended up getting sped up because we had sat down and talked about it, and we were both like, yeah, things are weird. Let's try marriage counseling. Let's try just like dating each other again. Let's just try to rebuild. And we were going to give ourselves a year because we didn't want to wait too long and just waste a bunch of time if it wasn't going to work out. So we decided we were going to give ourselves a year. And that year ended up being cut very, very short because I found out some information that I couldn't get past in the marriage. And so we ended up going ahead and with divorce proceedings. And even after that, we both talked a lot more openly about the issues that we had all along that we didn't realize we had. Because if you had asked me up until August, I thought I had the perfect marriage. I never thought we had any issues. I would always tell people all the time, it's too good to be true. Like, we're so good for each other. But after we started the divorce process, we both realized all these things that we were just not serving each other, that we were holding ourselves back in certain areas just so the other one could be happy. And we never actually even asked the other, hey, does this make you happy? We just assumed. And so we were both kind of miserable and we didn't know it.
And you also didn't have time to actually figure out what you truly did want anyway. So
exactly,
if you can't make yourself happy, or you're too young or inexperienced to know what makes me happy, how can I make someone else happy as well?
Exactly, because we were each other's first relationship. We were first for everything. We didn't have any experience. I didn't know how to be a wife at 19. I didn't even know how to cook, or I knew how to do laundry, but like that was it.
Well, I'm 41 and I still don't know how to cook that well. So I don't know if age has anything to do with that.
Yeah, but like I wasn't prepared at all to be the housewife. And when we moved up here to Alaska to serve where the need is great up here, like our life that we had, like we both felt like it wasn't serving us, that we needed to grow. We just didn't know that we would be growing in the directions that we did. And so coming up here, our dynamic in our marriage changed a lot, because back in Kentucky, he was the breadwinner. I was the pioneer housewife. We had very traditional roles, but once we moved up here, basically 50-50. And sometimes there were some months that I would work more and I was the breadwinner, and then he would take on more of the housework and the cooking and everything like that. And I think that was when I really started to realize what I wanted out of a relationship and what I was not getting. Before I left the organization, I was just thinking that, yeah, I'm happy. So why do I need to look for other things? Even though I'm missing this, this, and this, it'll be there in the new system. Why do I need to look for anything else? Like, we have a good marriage. Neither of us is mentally, verbally, physically abusive in any way. We're best friends. We like hanging out with each other. So why rock the boat? Why say what I need? And that's just kind of the stuck mentality we have as witnesses, because like, unless someone cheats, nothing is ever going to end. And neither of us would ever think about cheating on the other. So, and even if we did, I remember at one point we discussed like, oh yeah, even if you cheated, I think I'd still stay married. Like, we even discussed that at one point, just because it seemed like the right way to go. Divorce just isn't an option as witnesses.
But it really looks like you're doing really well considering.
I think our marriage ended very amicably. It definitely made things easier that we don't hate each other, that we ended the marriage still not necessarily in love, but with love for each other, which does make things hard sometimes because I worry about him. I don't know what he's up to. He has never lived on his own. He went from his parents' house to my house. So I'm like, oh, is he remembering to do this, this, and this? Is this taken care of? I try really hard not to worry about, because he's not my responsibility anymore, just like I'm not his. But
you care about him. It's not necessarily from a sense of duty or responsibility. You just,
yeah,
you're looking out for him, right?
Yeah, I spent the last 5 years stuck to his side. So yeah, of course I care about him. I'll always care about him. This is just really why I wanted to come on and talk about this, because I know there are several other men and women from the organization who have reached out to me since I posted about our divorce, who have said that they're in the exact same circumstance, but they don't know what to do because they don't have a reason to leave. And my therapist, I was talking with her this week, you don't need a reason to leave. Just the fact that it doesn't feel right is enough of a reason to leave. And as witnesses, we don't even know what our feelings are. Because one thing that I've realized in the past month is that I don't know that I was ever actually in love with my husband. It's a really hard conclusion to come to, because this is a man that I spent so much time with and who I loved more than I've ever loved anyone else, and in a different way than I ever loved anyone else. But I was infatuated with him. And then we got through the honeymoon period, and then I didn't even realize that, like, it's not normal. Like, the feelings that I was having weren't normal, because you don't talk about that either as witnesses. You don't talk about marital issues. Like, you don't talk about anything that makes you look less than Jehovah's happiest people. And so realizing that he deserves someone who's going to be in love with him, who's going to be obsessed with him, who's going to dote over him, and I can't give him that. That's a good enough reason to get a divorce.
And so do you.
And exactly, I deserve what I need too, just like he deserves what he needs. And so it was really hard to come to this decision, because it was easier to stay. We weren't unhappy, but we weren't happy. It's easier to stay where it's comfortable. It would have been easier. We don't have kids, so that made things a lot easier. But we do have our 2 cats, who are like our children. And just deciding who gets to keep the cats was painful, because we both love them so much. And it's like, that was one of the things where for me, it was like, no, we should just stay married, because this is too hard. I would go back and forth all the time. But I ended up, I'm really glad that we ended up going through with the decision to divorce, because I think, like, I've checked in a little bit on him, and I already see that he's thriving back home. He's got a new career, new apartment, new car, everything, and he's back where his family is, so he's got the support. And I love having the bed to myself, which is something I didn't expect. I thought it was going to be really lonely, but I've never actually gotten this time before to be on my own and to really get to know who I am, to not constantly be distracted. And it has been so rewarding, because even though some nights I do cry a lot, and some nights it is really sad, and sometimes I really miss having him as my friend. The amount of growth in just the last couple months since I've been on my own is insane. And I don't think I would trade it for anything. And so it's hard to see that from the starting point, because even now where I'm at right now, it's hard to see how bright my future is still, because I know that my future's bright and I know that his future's bright too. It's a hard choice to make, but like one of the things that I kept thinking of was choose your hard. It's hard to stay where you're not happy. It's hard to stay stuck where you feel stuck all the time, but it's hard to progress. It's hard to get to that happiness too. So you just have to pick which hard you want to go with.
Or choose your adventure. That's what I like to
Yeah,
say. Choose your heart. Either way, it's an adventure. But one of the things I think is so interesting about your story is that you gave yourself permission, which we all do once we leave. You gave yourself permission to think about what you truly wanted, which you had to unravel a lot of indoctrination to not feel selfish in doing that. And here's the thing, even non-religious, even non-JW marriages, children and values, personal values and belief systems are so important, crucial even to the success of a marriage. Anybody who's been married for any amount of time will tell you this. Kids, finances, these are really important topics that most people argue over or divorce over.
Yeah. And so then you throw the indoctrination on top of that. It's a real party.
And submission and headship. And, you know, at being an activist myself, it's sometimes it's difficult sometimes to be raised with this submissive behavior and yet have this fire in the pit of your stomach to stand up for what's right, because it's very contradictory to the upbringing we have. Then you couple in being a wife on top of it. It's just all very different since leaving. But I agree with you. I'm so happy that you've stepped into your own decisions and you're making your own happiness. When you get divorced, people will say, "Oh, I'm sorry." Don't be. Like, it's a really great decision for both of us. And that's what it sounds like it is for you.
Yeah. And that's because I've had a lot of people pitying me because they think Cody left me because of the organization.
Apostasy, of course.
And so like, I want, I tell anyone I get a chance to, like, no, Cody wanted this to work. We had to end things because it just wasn't good for either of us. Because I do get a lot of pity messages, or when I first started going through the process, I told a few people and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so mad at Cody." And I'm like, "Don't be, it's nobody's fault. Cody didn't do anything. I started this." My narrative at first, when I first left the organization, was, yes, your mixed faith marriage can work, and here's why. And it can work. I do fully believe that a mixed faith marriage can work, but it's okay if it doesn't. You're not a failure if it doesn't. It's still a success story either way, because all that matters is that both parties are happy in the end. And that's where I think me and Cody are at right now, is we're both gearing up to live our best lives. So while I wish things could have gone differently, I also feel like this is for the best. And what I told him is that I feel like we were absolutely meant to be together. I just don't think we were meant to be forever, because we both did learn a lot from each other. And we learned a lot from this experience. These last few months of going through the divorce process made us both grow a lot, because I've already noticed changes in him since I stopped being his wife, because we still lived together for the first couple months when we were processing everything, because we live in the middle of nowhere. So it's kind of hard for him to figure out how to get back home and everything like that. So we both learned a lot during that time too. We had a lot of really raw and real discussions about things in our marriage that before we would have never thought twice about. Things that we both brushed under the rug, that we just were going to let it go, but we didn't have to let it go. And like, not that we didn't start arguing or anything like that just because we were getting divorced. They weren't fun conversations either. And it's a really tricky situation, because everyone just assumes things about both of us, which isn't fair to either of us.
People are going to think what they want anyway. That's what I always say. It doesn't really matter. And eventually you guys are going to be old news, and they'll be on to gossiping about the next couple and what the other people in the congregation are doing. But in the meantime, can I just tell you how many conversations, how many people in the comments that I know personally are actually struggling with the exact same thing, for the reason that there's a lot to be said that when you unravel all this indoctrination, it does affect your marriage because it affects your soul, it affects your personality. And there was a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people juggling this. They wake up from the religion, and then they also wake up to the fact that they may have married the wrong person. The problem is that this is where a lot of people on the inside of the organization blame apostates, because anyone who's not in the religion just meant to tear down your marriage. There are plenty of happy marriages, of stories of couples who leave together and still have successful marriages on the outside. Ultimately, it just has to be a choice. It has to be a choice that we want to be with that person or not, or whether or not we're growing, or whether or not we want to be with someone who has interfaith marriages. I'm really glad you're talking publicly about this. It's not spoken of enough. It's really not.
Yeah, I was having a hard time finding people who could relate to me on the issue of ending a good marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And so since I started posting a little bit about it, I've had so many people like DM me or call me and email me their story, which is like eerily similar to mine. And it's really helpful because misery loves company. So it is nice to be able to talk to these other people and connect with people who are in a very similar situation. And
it sounds like one of the important points you're also making is having the hard conversations. That's really in any marriage, but I also noticed for me too, I got more real. I stepped into who I am. And believe me, Celeste, if I could have figured this out at 25 as opposed to 40, things would have been a lot different for me. But I got caught up in that spell of the black and white thinking of I can't say what I want to say because I care what people think, because I'm meant to be a doormat, because there is nothing else out there for me. I'm a wife and that's it. And a lot of people, women and men, stay in these circumstances because we're told to, whether it's marriage or not, we're told to stay where we are. And you can grow within the organization, but that's it.
Jehovah's Witness Celeste and Jehovah's Witness Cody were such a great couple. Everyone always looked up to us.
I have heard of the spouse who leaves the organization saying, I just can't be married to a person who is affiliated with this organization that harbors predators. And people who support that, I want nothing to do with, especially a spouse. What a challenge to be married to that. And they don't think it's the believing spouse doesn't think it's a thing. They don't believe it. That would be major conflict.
Yeah, and that honestly was a hard thing for Cody and I know it's a hard thing for a lot of other people too, because like once you know what you know about the organization, you can't unknow it, and you just want to tell everyone. But when you're talking to someone who is mentally in, it's hard to convince them. It's hard to tell them, like, look, this hard evidence, because
here's a court document, not an apostate website.
But no, it's Satan still trying to get at Jehovah. So even it's really difficult, and especially being in activism so much. I know it was difficult for Cody to hear all the things that I was saying and all the videos that I was making, bashing this big part of his life. Because at first I was not angry at the organization. I didn't have a negative viewpoint on the organization, which now I do. And so it is really hard to stay, to keep that loving balance when someone bashes something that is so big in your life, but also when you love someone who you know is a part of something nasty and evil. Like those are both really hard balances for either side. One message that I have for anyone who's in a similar situation like me is something that a friend shared with me earlier this year, when I was starting to go through the divorce process, which is it's okay to be the bad guy. Not everyone is going to agree with the decisions you're making, and they're going to make you out to be the bad guy. But it's okay. It's okay to do stuff for yourself. If you need to make the choice to end your marriage, because it's what's best for you as an individual, even if it's not best for your spouse, if it's what's best for you and what's going to keep you living your best life, it's okay. It's okay to make selfish choices. It's okay to make hard choices that make other people around you upset. It's really hard to accept being the bad guy, because I know a lot of us who are raised as witnesses are people pleasers to the extreme. So it's so hard to make these decisions that make other people mad at us, but it's okay and it's good for you.
Yeah, and the truth of the matter is,
is,
you're always going to be the villain in somebody's story. It's one of my favorite.
You
quotes.
are,
as long as it's
don't
not
be
your
the
own.
villain. Exactly. Don't be the villain of your own story.
Is that what you were going to
okay.
say?
Yeah, that is what I was going to say.
I love it. I love it.
But it's okay to be the bad guy. It's okay if people paint you as the bad guy. You just have to kind of try to not care. It's really hard to not care.
Right.
But you have to try to not care, and you have to do what's best for you. In the organization, we are told to put ourselves last. And you don't have to do that. It's not evil to make choices that are good for you. So that is like, I'm so happy someone told me that when I started going through this, because it was hard. It's hard to break someone's heart, especially someone that you care for. It's so hard to watch their heart break. But in the end, doing what's best for you is ultimately also what's best for them, because you're not doing them any favors by staying in an unhappy or a not great marriage.
Yeah, so and imagine how sad they must be thinking, you're going to die. You're married to someone. I'm married to someone and they're going to die. I'm not going to be in the new system with this person. And I'm just waiting for grounds. Like, can you imagine this mindset that these people have? So I really appreciate what you're saying.
It's really exciting to get to be who you are, because that's the thing. We don't get an identity as Jehovah's Witnesses. You are one of Jehovah's Witnesses.
Right.
And so when you wake up from that, it definitely puts a strain on relationships. When you figure out
we adopt all this identity, right? Like, I'm a Jehovah's Witness, I'm a wife, I'm an ex-JW, I'm an ex-wife. Like, we fall into this pattern of titling ourselves. And really, our identity is a mixed bag of our experiences and our journeys that we've taken to get to this point. So that's what our identity kind of is. And it evolves. It's very fluid what our identity is. So sometimes, though, it's hard to let go of that. I was this ex-JW, I was this JW spouse, and now what am I? Who am I? What's normal to me? Even the word normal, even the very definition of it was defined for us. We not only were we told who our friends were to grow up, as we were growing up, we were told who to associate with, who to date. We very well may not have liked this person on the outside of the organization, but you know, this is where we're staying. We were confined to the four walls of the organization. So it's not surprising that this is happening.
It happens a lot more than any of us know. I'm going to scream it from the rooftops. I'll probably never shut up about my divorce and how it's okay to leave a happy marriage if it's just not serving you.
That's what I'm going to title that. It's okay to leave a happy marriage. But I mean,
yeah,
it wasn't a happy marriage if you left it, right? Like, it
was what I thought it was a happy marriage. I believed that I had a fantastic marriage until I started looking at things with my critical thinking skills, with my newfound critical thinking skills. I started picking apart little things in our marriage, because we never fought. I always thought it was so weird that we never fought. We had one argument our entire relationship. And everyone's like, that's not normal. I'm like, no, we really love each other and we get along great. But it's not normal. Towards the end, we're like, oh yeah. Because I remember when Cody realized it too, I was like, okay, this is good. He said, yeah, I'm not happy. I'm not happy. And there's so many factors that go into it. So it's okay to leave a good marriage. I'll say good rather than happy.
We're just not in love.
That's really the absolute best of friends. We were the best friends. But a marriage is more than that. A marriage should be more than just being best friends. And in the organization, I think a lot of people would just say that they're married to their best friend and that's it. Because you do build that friendship, even if you don't have that romantic attraction, that sexual attraction, you don't have anything else that a marriage needs, you still have that friendship. So it's good enough. And so I think that's where Cody and I really was we were absolutely the best of friends, but we both needed more. And
what does life look like for you in the future, Celeste? You said you don't know, but what do you have any big plans or?
I definitely have a lot of big plans because now I have a world of opportunities open to me. So my first big plan is I am making a series of art based off of the emotions that I felt throughout my divorce. So this is going to be a really big project and I'm really excited about it. But also I've had a ton of opportunities open to me now that I would have never been able to do before. So now as a single woman who is not representing the one true God, I have a lot of job opportunities that I'm looking into going into grant writing to help with my activism more, to help other organizations that help people from high control religion or cults, because that's something that I'm very passionate about. And so now I have that opportunity to go in this direction. This is one thing, it doesn't have anything to do with my divorce or anything, but I realized that the organization instilled a fear of success in me. I was afraid to be too successful unless it was with my Bible studies. And so I never pursued anything I was passionate about.
It's fun not knowing, not having a plan, not thinking that this life is just kind of a means to an end, you know?
Yeah, it's fun. I actually made a list of things that I was waiting until the new system to do and decided that I was going to start doing these things now. So like one of them was I played cello throughout school and I was like, oh, in the new system, I'll play cello again. And so last week, you have to put your whole life on hold being a Jehovah's Witness. You have to wait until the real life in the new world to do anything you want to pursue. So I'm going to pursue all of those things now.
Celeste, it's so awesome to see how you're doing and to check back with us. I love when the guests want to come back on and they have even more success stories of how their journey waking up has brightened you up. And it's just so awesome to see. I love our relationship and like we would not have met were it not for activism. So thank you so much for coming on, for sharing your message. And I'm sure it's so extremely relatable. And I know there are people in the comments who are going to be very appreciative that you're giving this form of encouragement, that you actually do deserve to be happy. And that's a message we're trying to send with every single video is there is hope and positivity on the other side of high control religion. We're really excited to have you back and maybe we'll check on you again in another 6 months. We'll see what's going on in your activism.
Thanks so much for having me, Wendy.
Love you so much, girl. We'll see you next time. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to reach out to Celeste, all of her contact information is in the description box. And if you want to be on the show, be sure to reach out. You can email me at wendyrenee@gmail.com, or you can go to my website, wendyrenee.com, and click on the Be on the Show, Tell Your Story tab, and the schedule will pop right up. As always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.